Ever heard those like old public service announcements about stranger danger?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? The internet. It's made everything way more complicated, I think. Like,
Yeah.
how do you tell who's actually a friend online?
It's hard to know, right?
It's really hard to know.
Yeah.
So today, we're diving deep into this story that kind of sits right where faith and fame and something people are calling a TikTok cult all come together. It's wild.
It's a crazy case. Makes you think, for sure.
Totally.
I mean, we all know about influencer culture, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's everywhere. Our kids are obsessed with it.
Okay.
But this story takes like a really dark turn, like a seriously unsettling turn.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about Miranda Wilking.
Okay.
Super talented young dancer. I mean, she seemed to have it all, right?
Yeah.
But then she got mixed up with this group called 7M.
7M. And wow. Okay, you have given me a ton of material on this, like
Oh.
articles and legal documents. I mean, there's even a whole Netflix documentary. So where do we even start with all of this?
Well, it's kind of like putting together one of those, one of those puzzles, right? Like we've got her family, Miranda's family, desperately trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
Then you have these accusations of like manipulation and them taking all her money and stuff.
Wow.
And then like at the center of it all, there's this super charismatic leader.
Oh, boy. Okay, so our mission today is to try to cut through all the noise,
Yeah.
right? And really try to figure out what happened to Miranda and the people around her.
Exactly. We're going deep.
Deep dive. All right, so
Yeah.
let's start with Miranda herself. So before 7M, she was like building a pretty successful career with her sister, Melanie, right?
Yeah. They were like a big deal on TikTok, right?
Mm.
The Wilking sisters.
Yeah, the Wilking sister.
Huge following, even starting to get some, like mainstream attention.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where things get interesting. right?
Yeah, totally.
So they do what a lot of, young people do. They pack their bags in Michigan and head out to LA to pursue their, big dreams. And at first, it seemed like a good idea. Like they were getting work, enjoying the LA life. I mean, everything seemed perfect, right?
Totally. It seemed like they were on the right track, for sure.
Yeah.
Living the dream. But then Miranda gets involved with 7M.
Yeah.
And things just completely change.
So from what I've read, 7M presented itself as a creator house.
Yeah.
A place where these influencers could work together and support each other. I mean, that sounds pretty normal for that industry, right?
Yeah, on the surface it does.
Okay.
But what makes 7M different is this connection to a church.
Oh,
And it's run by this guy, Robert Shin.
okay.
And get this, Shin preaches something called the Seven Mountain Mandate.
7 Mountain Mandate, what is that?
So it's this belief that Christians, they need to be in charge of 7 key parts of society.
Like family, religion, education, media, entertainment, business, and government. Basically everything.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And this whole ideology starts to make sense when you look at what people are saying about 7M.
Oh, okay.
Former members are saying that Robert Shin, he used his position as this pastor to control their entire lives.
What? Like how?
They say he demanded tons of money from them, told them who they could date, even made decisions about their health. Crazy stuff.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And that's when we start seeing these similarities to other groups that have been called cults. Right?
Oh, yeah.
That focus on control and cutting people off from their family and friends, always asking for money. This kind of stuff just keeps happening over and over again.
That's a classic pattern,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. So, and it gets worse with Miranda and her family.
Yeah, way worse. So, according to court documents, as soon as she joins 7M, she starts distancing herself from her family.
Right.
Yeah. Stops making videos with Melanie, becomes super withdrawn, even missed their grandfather's funeral.
Oh my gosh. That's awful.
It's really sad. And it gets even crazier.
Right.
Her family, they actually made a video online, begging her to come home.
Oh, wow.
They were so worried she was being controlled by 7M.
I can't even imagine what they must have been going through, all that worry and confusion.
It's heartbreaking, especially because, they were so close before she joined 7M.
Right.
But that video, it actually went viral.
Wow.
Yeah. And then other people started coming forward, too, saying that their loved ones had also been involved with 7M. And they were saying similar things.
What?
About being pressured to give money, about arranged marriages, and how they were forced to cut ties with anyone outside the group. And that's when Netflix gets involved.
With the documentary.
Yep.
Dancing for the Devil.
Okay.
the 7M TikTok cult.
That's the one.
Wow. So 7M goes from being like this trendy creator house to, the subject of a whole Netflix documentary about cults. That's insane.
It is.
Did 7M ever actually respond to these accusations?
They denied everything. Said they were just a normal talent management company and that Miranda was there because she wanted to be.
Okay.
They pointed to her social media where she was talking about her new faith and how happy she was. They said it was just a spiritual awakening. But then things got even more complicated. A bunch of former dancers, they sued Robert Shin and 7M.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they said it was all a lie, that he was running a cult and using his position to take advantage of them.
Wow. And it seems like a lot of the accusations are about money, right?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Like, I read in the court documents that over, 8 years, 70 church members gave them almost $5 million.
Yeah, a lot of cash.
Like, that's an average of, over $8,000 a year per person?
It's a lot, especially when you consider that some people were giving even more money directly to Robert.
Yeah. It's messed up.
Yeah. And in the documentary, former 7M members say they were working for basically nothing, while Robert was living it up in a huge mansion.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And guess what? A lot of the creators were living there, too.
That's wild.
It is. Something doesn't seem right there.
No, not at all.
Nope.
But it's not just the money, right?
Right.
What really gets to me are these accusations that Robert was controlling their lives, telling them to cut off contact with their families.
Yeah.
Saying it's for their own salvation or something.
It's really disturbing.
It is.
And that's where things get really dangerous, when you mix faith and ambition, especially with someone like Robert allegedly in control. It's a lot harder for people on the outside to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here, right? To figure this stuff out.
Exactly. So let's look at the documentary now. What kind of stuff do former members say about their time in 7M? What was it like being around Robert Shin and his teachings? Okay, let's dive into the documentary then and see what we can find out.
Yeah, the documentary really gives you a look inside 7M. It's got interviews with former members who talk about how Robert, encouraged them to cut off contact with their families and controlled their money. He even made healthcare decisions for them. Crazy, right?
It's scary to think someone could have that much control over someone's life. These are young adults, a lot of them just starting out.
Yeah.
I probably went to 7M with these dreams of becoming famous dancers and social media stars,
Totally.
It's just heartbreaking to think they were taken advantage of.
And that's exactly what makes them so vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
They're away from home in this crazy competitive industry and just looking for someone to guide them, It's like the perfect situation for someone like Robert Shin. If those allegations are true, it seems like he went way beyond just spiritual guidance.
There's this one story in the documentary that really got to me.
Oh, yeah.
It was about this former member, Kylie Douglas. She said Miranda would tell her how much she missed her family and wanted to see them.
Oh.
But then Kylie said Robert would, discourage those visits. He'd say it wasn't a good idea, that it would, mess up her chances of salvation or something.
That's classic cult behavior.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Isolate their members.
Okay.
Make them depend on the leader and the group.
Right.
When they cut off those outside connections, they can control what people think, reinforce their own beliefs, keep their hold on people.
It's like they're creating this whole other reality where the only truth is what they say it is, right?
Exactly.
And anything from the outside world is seen as a threat.
That's where the manipulation starts. They're not just giving you a community or beliefs. They're trying to, destroy anything that might challenge their authority or contradict their teachings.
That's why it was so important that the Wilking family went public.
Yeah.
They broke that silence.
They did.
They showed everyone what was really going on behind the scenes at 7M.
Right.
And then more people started to come forward.
It's like a domino effect,
Yeah.
Once a few people speak up, it's harder for the group to deny anything.
Right.
It shows that it's not just a one-time thing, it's a pattern.
Yeah, a pattern of abuse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can give others the courage to break free, too.
But it's not always easy to just leave, right?
No, not at all.
Even when there's manipulation and abuse, people can feel really connected to the group.
Totally.
It's a lot more complicated than people think.
It is. And that's why we need to try to understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
Realize they might have a lot of mixed emotions, fear, guilt, maybe even feeling betrayed.
Right.
They're going through a lot.
Okay, so what about the sexual abuse allegations against Robert Shin?
Yeah, that's a whole other layer to this.
It is.
The documentary doesn't shy away from it. Several former members, even Robert's own sister, talk about it.
Wow.
They say he used his power to pressure them into sexual relationships.
That's awful.
It's really disturbing, and it raises some serious questions about how much power he had and the harm he might have caused to these people.
It's just crazy to think that a spiritual leader could do something like that.
It happens more than we think.
Really.
Yeah.
Wow.
People in positions of power, especially in religious organizations, they can abuse that power.
It's a good reminder to, be careful who you trust
Exactly.
and to question things that seem too good to be true.
Absolutely. There are always warning signs.
And those accusations are serious.
Yeah.
The documentary shows court documents and legal stuff that backs up those claims.
It does, and those documents also show how hard it is to hold someone like Robert accountable.
How so?
Well, the laws around religious organizations are complicated.
Okay.
There's this constant battle between protecting religious freedom and stopping abuse.
I see.
And that's a big part of the 7M case.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Miranda's family said they went to the police, but they were told that because everyone involved is a legal adult and there's no proof of physical force, there's not much they can do.
Wow.
It's so frustrating to hear them talk about feeling powerless to help their daughter.
It's heartbreaking. It shows how our legal system struggles to deal with these kinds of cases.
Yeah.
It's one thing to prove physical abuse or that someone stole money, but it's so much harder to prove psychological manipulation.
Right, especially in these cult-like groups.
Exactly.
It seems impossible to prove that someone's free will has been taken away.
It is tough, and it often leaves victims feeling trapped and silenced.
So what can we do?
We need to talk about these things more, not just in secret, but openly and honestly.
Yeah, get rid of the stigma around it.
Exactly. We need to create a safe space for victims to speak up and get help.
Because staying silent only protects the abusers.
Right. And it just keeps the cycle of abuse going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to be more empathetic and understanding,
Yes.
Realize that anyone can be manipulated, especially if they're looking for belonging, guidance, or a purpose.
Absolutely. So where does this leave Miranda? The documentary ends without a clear answer.
It does.
She says being with 7M is her choice, but she's been seen with her family recently.
So is she really free from Robert Chin's influence?
We don't know. Maybe she's just trying to make things look better for 7M. It's hard to say.
The 7M case is really fascinating and disturbing. It's a story that's still unfolding with no easy answers.
It is.
It makes you think about faith, ambition, and the dark side of influencer culture.
It does.
It shows how the pursuit of fame can have a dark side. And as we wrap up our deep dive, I keep asking myself, what can we do as individuals and as a society to stop this kind of thing from happening?
That's a big question.
It is. How do we protect ourselves and the people we care about from being manipulated? How do we create a sense of community and belonging without, falling into these traps?
It's about finding the right balance.
Right.
We need to be skeptical but not paranoid.
Yeah.
Support people, but also let them make their own choices.
That's tough.
It is. And a big part of it is education. We need to talk about these issues openly and honestly.
Yes, we do.
We need to give people the tools to recognize and fight back against manipulation.
It's like that saying, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly. And that's true for everything, not just like scams.
Right.
It applies to anyone who promises you perfect happiness or salvation, especially if they want you to cut ties with loved ones or give them your money.
The 7M case shows how this can happen anywhere, even online. It's scary to think that anyone can be manipulated no matter who they are.
It is scary. And it's a reminder that we need to be careful, not just for ourselves, but for our friends and family too.
Absolutely. So as we finish our deep dive into the 7M TikTok cult, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? What are some red flags to watch out for? And how can we protect ourselves and our loved ones?
First, trust your gut.
Okay.
If something feels wrong, if someone's pushing you to do things you don't want to do, or you feel like you're losing control, step back and think about it. Don't be afraid to question things. Get advice from other people and set boundaries.
And it's important to be skeptical, right? Especially with online groups that offer easy answers or quick fixes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Do your research, look for information from different sources, and don't be fooled by emotional stories or testimonials.
And it's okay to say no.
Yes, absolutely.
You can say no to requests, invitations, anything that makes you uncomfortable. You're in control of your own life.
Exactly. No one can take that from you.
These are tough things to talk about, but the 7M case is a good reminder to start these conversations. We need to be aware of manipulation and encourage critical thinking in a world full of influencers and fake stories. This is a story that will stick with me, and it reminds us to be careful and speak out against injustice wherever we see it.
What's really interesting is that this case challenges what we think about who's vulnerable to cults.
Ah,
We often think it's people on the fringes of society, but 7M shows that it can happen to anyone, even in the world of social media.
it's true. Anyone can be manipulated no matter who they are. It makes you wonder, what's our responsibility as viewers of online content? How can we help people who might be in these situations while also holding those in power accountable?
These are hard questions.
Yeah.
But the 7M case gives us a chance to talk about them. We need to raise awareness about manipulation and encourage critical thinking in a world full of influencers and carefully crafted stories.
If you have any questions or concerns after listening to this episode, please reach out to someone you trust, like family, friends, a therapist, or an organization that helps people who have been in cults.
And if you or someone you know might be involved with a harmful group, don't wait to get help.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more we know about how manipulators work, the better we can protect ourselves and the people we care about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the unsettling world of the 7M TikTok cult. It's a story that shows how looks can be deceiving, even online, and how chasing fame can come with a high price. We hope this episode has made you think and given you the tools to be more aware and make better choices in the digital world.
It's a conversation we need to be having more. Not just personally, but as a society.
Yeah.
How can we protect ourselves and the people we care about from manipulation and exploitation while still having that sense of community and belonging, how do we find that balance?
The tough one, right?
It is tough.
It's about being skeptical, but not letting it turn into full-blown paranoia.
Right.
And supporting people without, trying to control their lives. I think a big part of it comes down to education. Really,
Yeah.
we got to talk about this stuff openly and honestly. We got to give people the tools to spot manipulation and resist it.
It's like that old saying, right? If it seems too good to be true,
It probably is.
it probably is.
Exactly.
And that applies to more than just those get-rich-quick schemes,
Right.
or those miracle cures you see advertised.
Yeah.
It's also about those situations where someone is promising you ultimate happiness or fulfillment or salvation, especially if they want you to cut off contact with your family or give them all your money.
Big red flag.
Yeah, huge red flag.
Yeah.
And this whole 7M case really shows how this can happen in places you'd never expect, online.
Right.
It's a reminder that anyone can get caught up in manipulation and control. Doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, how talented you are, or how much money you have.
And it makes you think, what's our responsibility as viewers of online content? How do we support those who might be stuck in these situations while also holding those in power accountable?
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
There is no easy answer. But the 7M case, it gives us a chance to start asking these questions, to make people aware of the dangers of unchecked influence, and to encourage critical thinking, especially in a world that's dominated by online personalities and these carefully crafted stories.
It's a reminder that things aren't always what they seem, even online,
Yeah.
and that chasing fame can come at a high cost. We hope this deep dive into the 7M TikTok cult has made you think a bit more critically. And hopefully it's given you some tools to navigate the digital age with more awareness and make better choices.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.